Fiber is hot right now. It just is. There's just so much microbiome research coming out that everyone is starting to look at fiber. So what are some high fiber snacks that you can have on a keto diet? But not just that, what are high fiber snacks that are going to give you that crunch, give you that satiation, and make it feel like you're actually having something you kind of shouldn't be having on a ketogenic diet? Let's go ahead and dive in. First one I want to recommend is flax crackers, or flax seeds in general. And before you get upset with me because you know that the fatty acid of flax is not that great and yada yada, no, you have to hear me out on this. Flax has some benefits that far override the potential drawbacks. You see, flax is high in omega-3s. However, the omega-3s that flax is high in are land sources of omega-3s, which don't do us a lot of good. It's called alpha-linolenic acid. Now, that alpha-linolenic acid doesn't get utilized in the body the same way that, say, fish does or fish oil. So we can kind of scrap the omega-3s as really being the huge benefit there. It's just kind of irrelevant. The benefit of flax largely comes from the specific kinds of soluble fiber and specific compounds that are in it. Check this out. The British Journal of Nutrition published a study that found that just consuming 10 grams of flax for 6 weeks changed 33 different microbial species in the gut. It increased the abundance of them. This is a huge shift in 6 weeks. 6 weeks in the world of microbiome research is like a half a day in reality. That's a very short amount of time. And to see that big of a shift, that implies that we have a huge soluble fiber benefit coming from flax that we're not getting from other fiber sources per se. Additionally, they found that it improved insulin sensitivity significantly, which is exactly what you want on a ketogenic diet. You want to be more insulin sensitive because that is going to help you out with processing food and utilizing carbohydrates and fats a lot better, okay? So other studies have demonstrated that for whatever reason, flax heavily ferments into short-chain fatty acids more. Short-chain fatty acids are the end result that we want from fiber. You may think that the goal of fiber is to help you go to the bathroom. That's kind of a side effect. The goal of fiber is to feed your microbiome to produce short-chain fatty acids that signal your brain to do different things, right? We want the brain to communicate with our gut. Those little microbiome bugs in our gut, they tell our brain and dictate what we do. Now, if you want to get super technical, there's also a specific compound in flax that has a huge, huge benefit too. It's called SDG. When SDG gets broken down by the microbiome, it goes through a series of sort of transitions, one of which is getting what's called demethylated. Okay, and when it gets demethylated, it gets turned into something called enterolactone. Enterolactone has the ability to cross through the gut and has powerful effects within our actual serum. Like actually serum levels of enterolactone change how our cells respond to things. So the point is, before you go raining on your flax parade or someone else's flax parade, realize that there's more to flax than just the potentially estrogenic effect and the potentially useless omega-3s. There's a lot going on there that we should be really, really grateful for. Next one, I hope that you're stoked to hear, dark chocolate. It's funny because we don't think of chocolate as a fiber snack, but the reality is 11 grams of fiber for every 100 grams of dark chocolate is nothing to turn your nose up at. That's 5 times more than broccoli, okay? So we know it's a high fiber snack, but check out this cool study. The Journal of Proteome Research took a look at people that were anxious, had anxiety, and people that were not anxious, okay? And they took a look at urine metabolites, like what differentiated them. And they were able to ascertain that, okay, anxious people had a deeper concentration of specific metabolites. We don't need to go into detail which ones they were. They gave the anxious people 40 grams of chocolate for just 14 days. After 14 days, those anxious people had a huge suppression of those metabolites that were there before, indicating that their gut microbiome was starting to match those that were non-anxious much more. That is a huge, huge change. So chocolate is potentially mood altering, but also high in fiber, but it's probably mood altering because of the fiber. By the way, the things I'm talking about, the flax, the chocolate, some of the things I'm also going to talk about in the rest of this video, you can always get through Thrive Market. So quick plug for them. If you guys check them out down below, you can get things like Flackers crackers, which literally are flaxseed crackers, and these different snacks, all kinds of different chocolate, all kinds of different hummuses, things like that I recommend on keto. So anyway, there's a special link down below. That way you can check them out. So Thrive Market's an online membership-based grocery store. Things get delivered right to your doorstep. You don't have to set foot in a grocery store. It just comes right to your doorstep, and you can choose the foods that you want. You can sort by category, by diet. It is utterly epic. So highly recommend that you don't live without it. So use that link down below, and big thank you to Thrive Market for the support on this channel as well. Speaking of hummus, the next one's tahini. So hummus in small amounts on keto is fine, but if you look at the nutrition facts on hummus, you're gonna see that, yeah, it's pretty easy to go overboard on the carbs pretty quick. But tahini, in essence, is almost like a concentrated hummus. I mean, it's a big component of hummus. So it's like a more concentrated, lower carb version of it. Now, again, high omega-6 profile. So for those that are really into keto, we know that omega-6s aren't what we're after. But let me tell you something. This is a unique one because it contains a built-in antioxidant called sesamin. Okay, sesamin protects the fat from ever oxidizing. The problem with omega-6s is that they oxidize in the body and trigger bad issues there. If we stop the oxidation in the first place, the omega-6s aren't as bad. So sesamin has that effect. And typically when you're looking at tahini, you're looking at toasted sesame, which activates yet another compound called sesamolin. Anyhow, I digress. So tahini, absolutely good to go. Next one is kind of a fun one, coconut chips. Okay, now coconut is not the most nutrient dense thing in the world. It's not like something you're gonna get a bunch of vitamins and minerals out of, but it is high in fiber. So what you wanna do is you wanna toast it. Okay, you wanna toast coconut or get toasted coconut chips, which by the way, you can also get through Thrive Market down below. Okay, but then what you wanna do is you wanna toast them with some cinnamon. Okay, so you wanna douse them in a little bit of coconut oil spray, and then put some cinnamon on it. And what the cinnamon's gonna do is it's going to activate immunoglobulin A a little bit more, which helps protect the gut. Okay, so cinnamon can help prevent lipopolysaccharides from entering into the bloodstream a little bit more. So anyhow, that's kind of where you wanna go with that. Another one that's kind of interesting is zucchini chips. If you cut up zucchini into thin slices and then put it in the oven and then douse it with a little bit of avocado oil and a little bit of like Mediterranean spices like sage, rosemary, basil, things like that, you get a huge benefit. Not only do you get the rich fiber that you get from zucchini, but you're also getting what's called PPAR alpha activation. Basically, the spices, if you use Mediterranean spices, you get a pretty intense fat adaptation effect, which means it helps you get the benefits of a ketogenic diet a little bit faster. So sage, rosemary, basil, oregano, things like that, put that on zucchini, toast them, and you have nice crunchy little chips. Now the big one that I want to talk about today, and I'm gonna do a separate video on this because it's so intense anyway, is hazelnuts. Okay, look, in the world of nuts, macadamia nuts are the ultimate keto nut, no doubt, but there's not much fiber in them. And when you look at the other nuts, you could say, yeah, there's a lot of fiber in them, but you actually look at the kind of fiber, it's the wrong kind of fiber. Hazelnuts are extremely unique because they have a higher soluble fiber content. This is what we are after. Regular insoluble fiber is just roughage. It just goes through us and doesn't do much. Soluble fiber has a microbiome property. It has an active property and it feeds our gut. That's what we want. The Journal of Oxidative Medicine and Cellular Longevity took a look at people that consumed 40 grams of hazelnuts for 6 weeks. Okay, guess what they found? They found that they had increased expression of SOD1 and CAT. Okay, what these are in human terms is they are compounds that encode for superoxide dismutase. And that means in simple human terms again, that basically it helps our genetic potential to create more of this powerful antioxidant that's in our body that sort of gets rid of pathogens and helps keep us clean. So if you're looking at longevity, if you're looking at cellular rejuvenation and feeling fresh and feeling clean and healthy aging, well, that could be a very, 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 very big piece for you. But additionally, they found that something called PPAR gamma was activated or elevated. PPAR gamma, much like PPAR alpha, is interesting because it inhibits inflammatory cytokines in the adipose tissue. Okay, so when you have fat on you, if you're obese or just overweight, that fat is inflammatory. And that fat leaches out inflammation into the bloodstream. And that causes all kinds of problems. That's why obesity is linked to so many different metabolic issues, right? The inflammatory response is intense. So PPAR gamma, when activated, suppresses that response, okay? Very, very interesting, which therefore means that your body is in a little bit more optimal state. Very powerful there. So PPAR gamma is in the fat, PPAR alpha is in the muscles and the liver. The other thing we have to remember is, much like macadamia nuts, we're looking at 80% monounsaturated fats with hazelnuts. That's a pretty good fat profile. Hazelnuts make my list as a top nut all the time, but in the world of high fiber snacks, it definitely makes the high best nut list, whatever the heck that means. So anyhow, just to recap here, flax crackers, okay, that's something that you could have with like each meal. I recommend having flax with breakfast. Dark chocolate, I recommend having dark chocolate with like lunch because it kind of helps elevate the mood and give you a little bit of energy throughout the course of the day. Okay, then I recommend tahini, and I recommend scooping it with celery so you get the additional fiber coming in there. Okay, coconut chips, which are great with dinner because you could add a little bit of stevia to them and make them taste really sweet as well. Okay, then we also have the zucchini Mediterranean spiced chips. Okay, those are delicious with dinner, delicious if you're going to be going into a fast. Okay, and then lastly, we have hazelnuts, which are good with pretty much any meal, but I would usually stack them a little bit closer to breakfast just because the taste, but also because higher caloric density, and I always want to stack more calories towards the morning versus the evening. So as always, thanks for keeping it locked in, and I'll see you tomorrow.